Oh, wow. Hey now. What happened? Something happened. Did we find it? We lose it? Oh, it's over here. Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing? Okay. Honestly, that's a fair amount of spirit for the end of all things here. It is Friday evening, huh? Everyone have a good show? Yes, man, a lot of smiling faces. Playgrounds Berlin, huh? What about, let's give it up for Playgrounds in general, and Leon and his hard-working team, Paulien, who is around here. We can make a little applause, make a little noise. Woo! Oh my goodness, it is amazing. This is the networking panel. Tonight, very excited to be here with all of you and this fine group of panelists. This panel is put on by Firestarter. Everyone know what Firestarter is? Woo! Yeah, okay. Firestarter is put on by this gentleman here, Mr. Spiridon. Did I do it right? Spiridon. He's I'm working on my pronunciations here. Spiri is the man about town. He is at just about every arts festival, and he makes Firestarter Magazine off of his entire hard work. And that magazine is the magazine of this community, is the cornerstone. And it's such off the back of him that we all get so much enjoyment and so much community. So please give it up for Speedy. Okay. So tonight, this is about networking. We're going to be talking about, I guess, how do we talk to people? How do we take things from one place to the next? And joining us tonight over here on my left is Mr. Nathan CLEGG. Nate is the man of Procreate. Everyone use Procreate? Yeah. Woo! So Nate is the guy giving all the demos. He is massively influential in their marketing team as well as on the art side. And right next to Nate is Mr. Sava Zipkovic. Man, I'm working on it. Close enough. Did y'all see Sava's talk today? Right? Sava is a director. He works at Axis. He's worked on just about every cinematic you can imagine. Four cinematics, which is quite a few. It's almost. And next to Sava here is REIKO. Yeah, close. Bam, close. I'm trying. And REIKO is an art director at InnoGames. Lots of really cool information, lots of really great experience that I'm excited to talk about. And over here is EILEEN. And EILEEN is from Drink and Draw Berlin. Anyone go to the boat? Woo! EILEEN. EILEEN's from Drink and Draw. We all went to the boat last night. There's another event on the boat tonight.
Yeah, sure.
Second event on the boat. We'll be able to practice some of the things that we're talking about. And next to EILEEN is Ben MAURO. Of course, you all know Ben MAURO. He is at 343, working on Halo. He's worked on everything awesome, too. And next to Ben is BJORN, and talk about a guy who's worked on everything awesome. Oh, yeah, sorry, Ben, I cut off your applause. Please, hook me up. Look at that. And next to Ben is BJORN, and I don't know if you all saw his presentation today. Did you?
Yeah.
Come on. Some heat in this room, and I'm liking it. BJORN literally has worked on every project in the world. You saw his credit list was like 740 projects of everything anyone ever saw. So this is awesome. And I am Banks Boutté from Kipash 3D, and incredibly glad to be hanging out with y'all. Oh, gee, thank you, Speedy. So let's talk just a little bit about the really broad strokes of networking. I feel like networking as an idea sometimes can catch sort of a bad stigma. But could you, Nate, could you tell me, you do so many events. You're all over the world. You know, you're Savage, your company is in Tasmania. You're all over the world at all these different events and all these different cultures. What does it mean to you to network? Broad strokes, just why is it important? Why are we sitting here talking? Why should we care?
Because I think it's important to get a finger on the pulse all the time. For us, it obviously means a lot because we're coming all the way from Australia for almost every event. We haven't been to one event in Australia, so we're making all the effort to send the team across the world just to talk to artists because it's important to us. It's important to all of us for inspiration as well. Just sitting and listening creates so many ideas, so that's essentially why we do what we do, coming to all these events. So.
Such a unique perspective that you just brought up, that, you know, listening. You know, as a company that is here to support artists, I know that is a mission of Procreate. where you guys want to be the tool for artists. And I think listening and to understand people and to understand the group that you're part of is such an important part of being part of a group, is it not?
Yeah, correct. Because if we don't listen and we sit in just Tasmania, the like tiniest little island off the end of the globe, like, and we don't listen to you guys, we're just going to run off the rails and go into a realm that you guys aren't even interested in. So for us to come here, we're understanding which way you guys want to bend and which way you guys see the future going, so that we can kind of help you like get to that future. Because we're essentially trying to enable artists in at the moment 2D and now pushing into animation. So for us, it's opening up a bit more, but coming here and getting all the feedback, we kind of get an idea of where we should be maybe going in the future.
Awesome. Mr. BJORN, over here on the other side, having worked with so many different companies and so many different projects, have you or do you often find that you're getting jobs or getting new work or connecting to new projects from people you know personally?
I think so. I think that's major part of where we get client work from is word of mouth. I always make the example is like if I'm going to hire someone, I'm not going to go Google character artist robot and then try to find a guy or a girl that draws robots. I'm going to go, who do I know that draws kick-ass robots? Oh, Ben does. Hey, Ben, are you available? And I think it goes both ways where a studio that maybe hire us, they liked what we did, and then the artist or the lead artist or the producer that hired us moves to another company and is responsible for another project. He goes, oh yeah, those guys, they are awesome. I'm going to contact them again. And I think it's seldom we get these random knocks on the door. Mm-hmm. Hey, by the way, we have a couple of millions. Do you want to do something? You know, that hardly ever.
So then it's about staying relevant and staying up to speed with your network.
Well, I think it one feeds the other, rather than that you have to keep up in that sense. Like if you are always creative and you're always interested and you always want to work with new people, you will always be exposed to new people and their experiences, and in return they will be exposed to you and you will grow together. And some people you maybe not connect with, and that's fine, you finish the project, but you'll still remember that project, and maybe 5 years later you have a different point of view and you see eye to eye after 5 years, and that's fine. There's all of the other fishes in the sea, you know.
Right. EILEEN, as you are seeing so many people come in and out of Drink and Draw, how do you utilize relationships as part of your business?
Well, we're like an art collective, and so, well, networking and basically outsourcing projects is basically what we do. So, like, we get requests, like people asking us, like, hey, can you like recommend like an illustrator who would be really awesome doing that? And then we're like, yeah, you know, maybe all of us are busy, and so we think like, okay, so who came to the boat, drew like an awesome, I don't know, character, and we're like asking this person, so do you have time? And maybe we can like connect you to this job, basically. So it's like really based on who does what well and who we like know and trust, basically, to give jobs to.
Is social media a big part of what you guys do, or is it part of what you do at all?
It is definitely part of what we do, but I would say the personal contact comes first. So sometimes we get asked via social media to do stuff, but usually like we talk on the phone, or then the people like visit the boat and they're like, oh shit, you guys really have a boat? Like it's not only on the pictures. So that's like a huge part, I think, to really like go to the location, like see what we're doing, what we're about. Yeah.
Super cool. Out of curiosity, how many people in this room heard of Drink and Draw Berlin from this event? Sweet. And of you all, how many of you live in Berlin?
All right.
Sweet. Okay. So doing some networking.
Yeah. Great.
Mr. MAURO, you have traveled all over the world. You had a very legendary online stint of living in different countries and not really living anywhere at all. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Which part?
Just can you tell us, you know, when you started that, how long you did it, where you went?
Yeah, I started maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and was on the road for like 3 years, and I was probably started in New Zealand, and then just started going all over, like Australia, China, Japan, France, Germany, kind of just everywhere.
Well, and how long were you staying in each spot?
Sometimes a couple days, sometimes a couple weeks, sometimes a couple months. Sometimes it depended on a movie or a game I was working on. Like I was in Paris for almost a year on Valerian, on and off, just because I was working on the movie. And other times it was for an event like, okay, THU or whatever event is going to be in this month. Let's plan a trip, slowly making our way down there. And other times it was, my wife's from China, so her visa would be pretty tight sometimes. So, okay, let's just go to China for this month and come back here, or I would stay and she would go. Or
Well, and you mentioned locations for work. Do you find that, or how important is it to you that in this business where you're constantly, or if you choose to, constantly being uprooted and having to go somewhere else, how important is it to you that when you get somewhere that you find a social network that you can plug into and familiarize yourself?
it kind of depended on the project. Like Valerian, they didn't force me to be in-house, but I was having so much fun that I kind of wanted to. Like I worked on the project and was like, well, I want to see the sets get built and I want to be on set and like see my robot and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, hey, can I be an extra too? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like I wanted to be involved because it was just kind of fun. Other projects I don't really care. Like, oh, I got to sit at an office in LA. I'd rather be on a beach or something. I don't know. So a lot of it was just depending on the project and if I wanted to do that. But after 3 years of traveling, I felt like I missed it. Like I missed being around artists all day. I missed learning on the job and collaborating. And so once I stopped, I kind of wanted the opposite, where I wanted that in-house experience again.
You wanted the balance of
Yeah.
the studio and then freelance.
Yeah.
Super cool. And speaking of studios, Mr. Zivkovic. Did I get it? I'm close. Sava. Sava, working at a studio and directing big projects, you obviously have to bring on a lot of people. And you, in particular, have a pretty tight-knit team already. Can you talk a little bit about Iz and Mihailo and the gang and some of the guys that you were talking about on your show?
Yeah, I personally don't get to personally pick and choose people and bring them on the projects. Sometimes I do. Like for example, like the Outriders trailer that I've talked about. I brought on Steven for the matte paintings, Steven Corman. But in general, like it's always, Axis has its own kind of a big pool of people already in-house. I pretty much, most of my work is done remotely, actually. So I only am on site for like the key moments in production, typically like the first couple of weeks, maybe once more for motion capture, maybe once more towards the end of the project. So I really can't speak to that.
So then in your personal work,
Yeah.
you have a team
Yeah.
from home that you guys came up together.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Well, I've said this many times, but it's essentially like the way to kind of build teams, at least in my experience, and at least how I've done that, is through kind of convincing them by doing. So you're never going to be able to kind of like, well, at least in my experience, you're not going to be able to just immediately on your first project, you've never done a short before, your first short, you're going to get like 5 guys to help you out for free. Like that's not going to happen. You need to kind of, for your first thing, do it by yourself and make sure that you can deliver a short that's kind of completely doable by the experience that you already have. And that way you can show like you're on this path and you wanna like you're gonna be doing this regardless of if people are gonna be helping you or not. And hopefully along that path they'll be interested. In my personal case, again, I've been sharing this kind of co-working space with Iz and Milan, who are like biggest supporters, the biggest kind of the core team.
2 of your best friends too, right?
Yeah.
So the 3 of y'all share a
Yeah,
co-working
so
space?
we early on we shared on this kind of co-working space where everybody was doing different things, but we were constantly like inspired by each other's stuff, and we were constantly, we have to do something together. But I would never, again, like for one, asking friends for help for free. I would never approach anybody unless we're all kind of getting some sort of kind of experience, positive experience or whatever it is, positive value out of the project. And then for the second thing is you can always approach somebody and ask for help, but in my personal experience, like I would always do as much as I possibly can without anybody's help. And then when I approach somebody, I'm not just approaching and asking like, oh, I have this idea and it's about this and that, and he doesn't really understand what I want to do. I would kind of do the whole previs, I would do the renders, I would do exactly everything I can possibly do. And with that, I would start approaching people and be like, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm doing. So in that case, like you're showing them that this is what you're doing and not something that you want to do. And it's just an easier buy-in because they have more confidence that this is like, it's not something that's just gonna go away. Everybody starts personal projects, but very, very rarely do people finish them. So, yeah.
I love that. I think it's so important. You know, being as prolific as you are in your personal work as well as in your professional work, it's so important, I think, for all of us to hear that it's not just, hey, I have an idea, let's start working on it, or how about you start working on it, and then I'll catch up. It's, I'm working on this. This thing is happening. Would you like to get on board?
Yeah, I mean, it's not as like totalitarian, I guess.
You've done
Yeah.
the work, and I think it helps in your case that you can do previs, but I think almost everyone here can at least do some concepts or get into the game much more so and have something on paper. It's totally different if it's in front of you.
Yeah, it just helps, again, helps to get the buy-in, helps to convey that this is something you're serious about and it's just not just like a side project. I treat my personal work very seriously. It's sort of like the thing that I'm mostly passionate about. I still haven't had, although I really enjoyed some of the client work thus far. Again, I'm a pretty much a noob in the industry. I've been doing this for only 2 years now, so I'm still kind of like learning the ropes. But it's kind of a thing. I've made a point in a talk recently that I've done. I've said like there's been loads of short films and stuff that have been done by single persons, like I've started. But I've made a point that this doesn't mean it's true. It's like something I kind of felt. I made a point where I wasn't feeling like I was directing things because I was doing it all by myself. Because directing yourself is easy. You know what you're gonna do and you just fucking sit down and do it. Directing teams is hard, and that's the actual job you're gonna be doing in the end. Because you know what you want to do. If you do it yourself, you just execute. But if you have the ability to convey your vision and your idea to the team of people and have them execute it for you, and that's the essential kind of part of directing. But then I realized like recently, so I've said that, but I have like a little update on that recently where I've done, well, like I said, entirety of 4 game trailers thus far. But in the 4 of those, I'm only really kind of sort of satisfied with one of them that really kind of speaks to my kind of style, and that's the one I showed today. But even in the end, like that one was changed. That one was re-edited, and they did the whole score, which completely changed the mood of it. So the update on that kind of statement is you're not, or in this case, I've never truly directed something until because like, again, personal projects for me are easy because I don't have an outside voice controlling it. But I haven't done a professional client project thus far. That's completely kind of like my idea from the very start till the very end, executed exactly as I saw it in the beginning. So that's the kind of the next goal, I would say. Yeah.
So y'all know too, Sava says he's been doing this for 2 years, but he was in 3D and architecture before this. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in 3D for 11 years now, but I've been before that, so I've been doing like different things, architectural visualization and motion design. It's a bit of a different industry.
Right.
In the actual games industry, it's only been 2 years thus far. Yeah.
Got it. So REIKO, did I get it close?
Yes.
I'm working on my pronunciation stuff. Speaking of art directing, Sava brought up something that I think is a really important thing to keep in mind in how do we derive value from a project. And I think in small business, which everyone in this space, especially freelancers, are in small business. If you work at a studio, it's a little bit different. But as an art director, how do you communicate to your team in ways that can help people with you see value in the project?
I think openly. I think open communication is the most important trait you can learn, and Can you hear me? Too loud. Yeah, open communication is the most important thing that you can learn to do as an art director, but also as an individual. Communication is the most important thing.
Great. Okay. So let's dive into that a little bit. When you say open communication, how do you deal with someone on your team who isn't communicating well?
I'm fortunately in a great art team that is communicating very well.
Very good.
But one of the there is a management strategy that's called Radical Candor. It's a philosophy by Kim Scott, and that's a very interesting thing. It means it's two aspects: care personally and challenge directly.
Sorry, say those two parts again.
Care personally and challenge directly.
Care personally and challenge directly.
Yes,
Cool.
and that's basically in the center of my art direction. So, challenge directly means there's open communication in both ways. You speak honestly, you speak what's on your mind, and you can speak it immediately, all the time. That means if something goes wrong, if some shit happens, you confront a person, this is not cool, I don't like it. If something good happens, you confront a person, hey, that's great, that's awesome, it's way better than last time. This goes when you are directing images. You say, this part is great, this isn't yet. And that goes over all the team. So I encourage my team to talk to each other as well. So everybody is, in the best case scenario, everyone's art director, so that there's a steady communication and steady flow of information and input. And that goes again in my direction. So one of the first things I said, please always overpaint each other's artworks also, because that might bring other ideas to the table, ideas that wouldn't have surfaced otherwise. And the second part is care personally. So I actually try to act in a way as an art director that benefits the people I work with directly. So you need to know the people, their networking comes in, so you directly talk to a lot of people all the time, and you learn what's important to them, what do they like, what don't they like, and you try to incorporate that in the daily life. So if someone is a great character artist and the other one is a great landscape artist, it's natural that you say to the great landscape artist, yeah, do the environments, and to the other one, to the character. What is not natural is asking the question, okay, what are you going to do in 4 years? In 5 years, I know you're not at this company anymore, probably, because why should you stick in a company for 8, 9, 10, 12 years? A few people do it, but most of us fluctuate. So what is your ambition? And then you try to get that, you try to understand that, and you try to plan your sprints. So we work in sprints, that's the management thing. Well, I hate sprints because you have to plan them. I'm not a good planner. And you try to see what really drives the people and try to give them those tasks and those jobs and make them grow in those aspects.
On the ideal of caring personally, do you and your team make an effort to spend time together outside of work?
Most of us, yeah. It's not everyone, because not everyone wants to make the time after work, but I have friends I go to the gym with. We have a gym at InnoGames that we can use every day. So we spend time there, we spend time after works occasionally. Sometimes we have those Thursdays at InnoGames where we are encouraged to spend some time in our main hall and have some snacks and talk. And there's a lot of networking happening, of course, and basically every lunch break is with a team.
So on this idea, I think radical candor is a really awesome thing. And how do you manage it if people are openly speaking their minds and two people at the same level are in hardcore conflict?
That didn't happen to me yet, fortunately. But I think, yeah. But I think even there, it's just about open communication. See where the conflict comes from, analyze the problem, and make or try to help as a mediator in a neutral standpoint, finding a solution. Listen. I think it comes down to listening, because usually when there's a conflict, there's somewhere in the past something happened, and you have to get that. You shouldn't make early judgments, and you should just listen a lot, and that's also one of the most important things. Communication, yes, but also listen. Shut up once in a while.
A recurring theme that Nate brought up.
Yeah.
Nate, when talking about Savage, I got a chance to spend some time with James, your co-founder, who is full of really awesome energy. And do you guys in Tasmania as a team, do you take time to do things outside of work together personally?
Not recently, because we've been on a big kind of sprint. You could say it's not an actual sprint, but essentially, yeah. But a lot of the time, it feels like we have family events, and that sounds quite weird, but we're a very small team, and for a long time, we were like under 15 people. So we would go for drinks after releases, and also our lunches. We have a big gathering at lunch, and we used to have a big long table, and that's where we'd all just chat. And then we realised that it's not been an hour lunch, we've been sitting there for 2.5 hours. And sometimes it's just, we don't even go back to our offices. All we do, just get our laptops and sit in the lounge and just keep working and all talking together, and you get like a little bit of work done. But at the same time, we appreciate those moments because that's what re-energizes us, and that allows us to push forward for the following weeks. And sometimes it's a whole week of, like, you could say, not hardcore work, but just like hanging out, cool ideas, inspiring each other, like creatives sitting, like designers and stuff sitting next to engineers. Like, some of my best design work has come from sitting next to engineers, and vice versa, because you can kind of just like snowball like back and forth with ping pong, essentially, like with ideas. And many of the features in Procreate have come from those instances, and not just people locked away in their offices. So I think communication is huge. As we grow, it's one of the struggles that we're trying to deal with, and try and keep that kind of family mentality and communication open. And now we've got departments, which is new for us as well. Like, we're a very young company, so we've got the Marcom department, which is my department, with Georgie and a few of our artists and designers, and managing that team and is new for me as well. So the communication thing is a learning curve for me. But also I think it's important to just bring people on the journey, make them feel a part of the journey. So even if they bring something to the table that isn't completely correct, it's pointing out, all right, I like this direction of that concept. So I think it's important that you always encourage, but also like be direct on, it's not quite right, but this angle was nice that you were trying to hit. So I think it's important to just bring people on the journey.
Awesome. And you guys are, just about every big 2D artist is using Procreate in some part of their workflow, or at least has tried it. So you guys are almost experts at how to approach an artist. And I think this might bring a lot of value to people in the room. How do you guys take that on when you're thinking of, I want to connect with an artist that that you guys really like and want to build a relationship with?
A lot of the time, approaching artists is two things. One, we're massive fans of the work. Like, we're sitting in Tasmania, and we have an art channel where we're just like, check out this art, check out this art. And half the time our commissions are, someone follows us, and then we follow them back, and then we're like, sneaky message, hey, are you free? What are you doing? Are you using Procreate? Blah, blah, blah. And trying to create a relationship with that. So that's something that Georgie, if you've seen Georgie around, she's doing a lot of that. All the time, and she's also going, hey, I've spoken to this person, do you like their work? Or like vice versa, I'll go, Georgie, have you checked out this person's work? We should get in contact. So for us, it's that, but it's also seeing amazing work from artists and going, wow, how did they do that? And like knowing that some of that isn't possible in Procreate, and knowing that maybe if we talk to them, we can understand what they need to, or how can we better that tool in the future as well. So I think that's important. So from both sides is, one, us having fun and being able to talk to artists, and two, also seeing artists doing amazing things and seeing how we can help them as well. So it's kind of a two-factor thing. Like, we're all massive fans back at the office. So yeah.
So leading with genuine interest. And
Yeah,
appreciation.
of course. Like, we just want to be friends. That's half the time we just want to talk. Half the time, like, we did IFCC. It's our first event we've gone to that we didn't have like a booth. And it was amazing just being able to talk the whole time, like going out, lunch, dinner, and talking, rather than sitting there and demoing all the time. I mean, we love that because we need to educate people about the application, but most of the reason we come here is the networking part, is we meet new artists. Some artists that we don't know are using us, because not everyone... We'd love if everyone went like #Procreate, because then we know you're actually using us. Like, sometimes we're like, oh, they don't use us. And then 2 years later, like, I've been using you guys for 3 years. And then you're like, oh, really? Like, we would have been working with you ages ago if that was the case. So for us, it's coming to events and meeting new artists that are using us, etc. So, yeah.
I think of networking, or at least, having friends is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
Is in this space is so awesome because this community is so awesome, and the people in this community are the type of people I would like to be hanging out with, or I am hanging out with at home. And I think we run into sort of two steps of this process where it's yes, I want friends and a personal fun life, but also I want to improve my work process.
Yeah.
And BJORN, do you find or do you give any advice to those who aren't necessarily hyper extroverted, you know, who aren't looking for a ton more friends, but they are trying to figure out, how do I improve my, how do I utilize a network, and how do I become part of a community, and how do I get a job?
Well, that's interesting, because I'm naturally one of those people who are not very extrovert, and I come from Sweden, and in Sweden you don't talk to anyone. When you're like stoic, you're sitting like focused on the bus ride. There's no body contact. There's no nothing, and you don't even acknowledge. It's just like a ghost, you know. So my first exposure with an American person was in 2004 in one of my first workshops ever I attended. And I was exposed to their very dramatic and extroverted behavior. And as a Swedish person, it was extremely contrasted. And I was like, oh, I can learn things here. So I had to acknowledge to myself, I don't know this skill. And I had to actually analyze, especially how Americans were behaving, because they were very loud and like, hey, here I am. And as a Swedish, I was in the corner. And I wasn't making any contacts. I wasn't talking to anyone because I was so scared of taking space. And I instantly learned, like, this is something that's a flaw in me. And I want to be active in understanding that this is something I have to train. So whenever I meet someone, now that I have practiced, I make the extra effort to invite them into a conversation, or say, hey, how's it going? Or who are you? And I think it's really important, because we are artists and we are sitting in our cave somewhere in darkness for the optimal contrast ratio, and we don't talk to people, right? And we really have to live. Like Ben is talking about, he has all this water in his art cup. He wants life cup to fill up. So he goes out and enjoys life and meets people and exposes himself to languages and impressions, and it's really important. And I think I come from the really bad ability to meet people, and I think it's super important that you should take that extra step and just push yourself to meet someone or contact someone that you want to talk to, or just make that intentional effort.
It's funny that you say that. I am in the process of learning that there is an American thing, you know, and that this, you know, I've seen it here with a bunch of my good friends who are not from America, with the kind of like, oh right, American joke, and I'm starting to understand what that means, yeah. And it's very interesting, because, you know, in the States, I think this idea of like go for it is so readily beaten into your head, and for me personally, it's not always fun. You know, I've found that I have to like get myself to do it, you know, and oftentimes you're tired, or you're at an event and you've been doing something for weeks on end, and you've been super working hard, and the last thing you want to do is like go out there and like put yourself at risk personally and like go up and talk to someone, you know, and what with all the fears of what that's like. Yeah. And I think it's interesting hearing that, you know, America is thought of as so in your face, and I'm starting to understand what that means.
I wouldn't go that far as say in your face, but extremely way more extrovert than the cold north of Europe. Like,
perhaps it's just because of the like heavy business culture.
I think so. I think there is in my experience, there's you're not supposed to talk about what you're doing. The things you're doing should talk for itself. So, but that also, it causes you to miss a lot of opportunities, because you're not always being seen or heard. And like I said, my first exposure in 2004 at an American workshop in Europe was like, okay, I instantly recognized that this is a really important skill to have, to be able to be heard and to be seen at the right place at the right time for the opportunity to take place.
Right. For my brain, having sort of a business structure about things has been really helpful for me. And if I've learned anything from doing these panels over the last couple months, it's how different everyone's opinion is, and you just have to find the thing that works for you. But for me, there's a lot of business terms and marketing ideas that have made it really easy for me to justify to myself when I'm having that resistance of how do I just get up and go do it. You know, the idea of impressions. You know, if you're trying to sell a product, which if you are an artist, your product is your brand. Yourself is your brand, which is your product, which is a difficult thing, I think, to get past. But you want as many impressions, targeted impressions towards the people that you're trying to get to buy your product. And in this case, your product is your artwork. And so then as many times as you can get out there and put your work and yourself and your persona, because especially if you're gonna go work in a studio, work on a team, like everyone was saying, you want to work with people that you like.
Yeah, I want to also add something. Like I come at the beginning when I was into the industry, like starting to learn the industry. This was days of forum days, and there was no such things as this. There was no social media platforms, but you recognize the people on these forums that were like, oh, who are you? I'm an artist trying to figure this out, and you grow together in this journey. And I can count like 20 people from the days of those forum days where they were really active and really going for it, and they were talking to other artists on this forum. They were all in leading positions today. And all the people that didn't talk, all the people that were scared of reaching out and networking, they are people that are like, they're great. They don't have color to them, and no one remembers them, or they don't have a place in the industry. And they just fizzle out because they haven't made a conscious effort to want to join the party.
You know, coming into entertainment, I had always thought, oh, just be good enough. And if you're good enough, they'll hear about you. And I've seen over and over again through the 12 years I've been doing this that is the case, that you have to have some kind of business and marketing sense. Or if you do adapt the business and marketing sense, it's almost like a bonus point, or
yeah, I agree. But then also skill in all its glory and credit. But no one wants to work with an asshole.
Right. It doesn't matter how good you are. Right?
Yeah.
Ben, when you're very active on social media, you must get a lot of people contacting you from to hire you, but also young artists who are trying to learn from you. What are some of the good ways that goes down, and what are some of the pitfalls?
I mean, like at the last panel talk, we said this. I don't know.
Did the mic?
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Hello. You have to be persistent without being like annoying, I guess. Like if people are very transparently just trying to like get something from you, it just comes out pretty easy. Like, but if someone's just like talking to you, and then they kind of like slip it in there or something as like a, like if it naturally goes in that direction, it's fine. But if it's just like, hey, look at my portfolio, and you're like, whoa, hey man, or if you see it and you're like, okay, maybe I'll check this out later, but then, it just gets lost in the email, and then they're like, what the fuck's your problem? Why didn't you answer my? And they're like, whoa, man, I have a life. Like I got stuff I got to do. Like 5 minutes later, they do this kind of thing. Like, it's like, okay, block,
It goes back to what both Nate and Sava were saying, where leading with genuine appreciation builds a bridge. And where Sava was saying, how do we bring value, and how do two people derive value out of things? Some advice that I always have clung on to is the idea of bring value. The way to succeed, the people who do succeed are the ones who bring more value than anyone else. And so if you're trying to reach out to an artist, who's working on Halo, and you want to connect with them because you genuinely like what they do, and you genuinely want some part of your life to resemble some part of theirs, finding ways to bring value, and finding ways that you can figure out what Ben wants and how can you help Ben achieve that. Do you agree is a much stronger standpoint than, hey,
I guess
here's
so.
what I want from you?
Yeah, I mean, but even artists that have contacted me, it's more just respecting that it might take me a little while to do it. I don't mind, especially if someone's doing cool stuff. I don't mind taking a couple minutes after work to check it out. But if someone's so invasively, after 5 minutes of it, Facebook's this was seen by you or something, and then you don't respond for a couple days or an hour or something, and then they're just like, what's your problem, man?
Yeah.
Why are you such an? And then you're just like, whoa.
That's a tough.
Stuff's busy.
Not taking things personally and not making things about you, and realizing when you're talking with two people that oftentimes what's going on with the other person is about them is a hard, weird thing to wrap your head around. You have to drop your own.
Yeah,
sense of control.
But even I work next to say Sparth every day, and I'll even message him on Facebook hey, can you check this out or something? And I sit next to him, and he won't see the message for like 4 months, and they're like, oh, hey, I just saw this. You know, like people are busy, and even if you're sitting next to them, they won't even see it sometimes. So it's just being aware of like, a lot of people just have busy lives or a lot of kids, and it's just their life is very complicated. So don't get frustrated. Yeah.
So then, what advice do you give to a young artist who says, "Hey, I'm trying to get into my first job. I want to work in video games, and I know the location I want to be in, but I don't have any contacts at studios." Do you say, "Hey, just go with the system and send in blanket applications," or do you say, you know, look up the company and
a little of both, I guess. Like a couple years ago, Mike Hill told me a story where when he was starting out, he applied to Guerrilla Games and didn't hear anything back, right? And then like a year later, Guerrilla Games came to Character when Character was like just getting started, and they were like looking through his portfolio, like, this is amazing, this is exactly what we need. And he's like, I applied with this exact portfolio like a year ago. Why didn't you?
Right.
Like, you could have got me way cheaper, and now you're gonna pay like triple. And they're just like, well, we never saw it. You know, it didn't get through HR. HR had a different criteria for how they filter things, and maybe he didn't have like a certain college that they needed for him to be approved to like have the art be shown to the people who would hire him. And so sometimes that happens. Like, there's producers filtering things in whatever way they want it to be, and it just wouldn't make it to the art director that would hire you. So getting more in touch with the people actually there is sometimes a better route than going through the system.
There's an adage in business that if you're trying to work with a company, you want to get in touch with as many decision makers around that decision as possible. Because at a big company, it's not one person deciding. And you may know the art director at a company, but if you know 6 art directors and 4 character designers, when they start having the conversation of who should it be, you know, like we were talking about a moment ago, it's right off the top of my head. I know this person's work. And then someone else goes, oh yeah, I know them too, and they're great.
Like even when I got the job at Weta Workshop, that took a year. That took a year of me being persistent without being annoying. Like I met the owner at Comic-Con, and he gave me his card and said, like, maybe we'll have some work for you. And they were kind of starting on The Hobbit, and every month I would just send some new work. Every time it would be better than the last. And like, oh, hey, here's some new work. And I wouldn't be pushy or anything, but just like, oh, here's some new work. I hope you guys are doing great or whatever. And each time I'd be like, oh, thanks for this is really cool. And sometimes they would respond like, oh, we still don't have any work or whatever that we can bring people on. But after about a year of this kind of thing, they're like, oh, we have a ton of work. We need more people, and are you available to come down? But it's just these kind of like little like nudges of just like, oh, here's some cool new work. And each time was like improved and much better than the last time. And again, after a year, they were just like, yeah, come on down.
That idea, persistent without annoying, I think is such a strong one. In so many projects that, you know, we'll get head down producing something, and someone really early on will reach out to us and say, hey, I saw that you're looking for a thing, you know, and I'm available. And you're like, we're in early development on this, and we don't need someone in your position. And then a month, 3 months go by, and if that person reaches out again, even if we don't need them, you get another brand impression. And you're like, oh yeah, this person really wants the job.
Yeah.
And then 6 months go by, and then 9 months go by, and they keep reaching out to you, and then all of a sudden you get to a place where you're like, shit, we need someone tomorrow to fill this thing, and you're like, that guy. You know, the one that kept on reaching out. And I feel like that, you know, the fact that it took a year to get the Weta job is a perfect example of that.
And a lot of the time too, it is like when I showed my portfolio, like they really liked it, but it's just a timing thing sometimes. Like you just have to be patient. If you really want that, you know, patience is a virtue. Like I really wanted it. I was willing to stick it out and wait for my chance to do that job I really wanted. But yeah, sometimes it's like they really do like your work. They're not like just saying that to be nice or something, but they just don't have a spot or whatever. So yeah, just it's kind of like keeping your place in line. Like, hey, I'm still alive, and I really do want this job, kind of thing.
Right. Awesome. Well, Eileen, let's talk just a little bit about the local Berlin scene. And I think many of the people in our audience live in Berlin, right? Yeah, we got some head nods. So let's talk a little bit about you know, being plugged in on the ground floor of a drawing sort of staple here. What are some of the things that you see, and what are some of the advice you see to young artists in Berlin who are trying to crack the code and make a career out of this?
Yeah, I feel like
Try this one.
Oh, sorry. Hello. Okay. So I feel like my boyfriend and I are probably the best example for this, because we moved to Berlin literally knowing like no one. We had like one internet friend that was like living there, and he was like, you know, like if you don't know any artists, just go to Drink and Draw and it's gonna be fine. We were like, okay, Drink and Draw, yeah, cool. Live drawing is always good, obviously. So we just went there, and like we two are like super introverted, so it was like, oh shit, like so many new people, cool artists, like the level was really awesome as well, like really cool people. And so we just like, you know, hung around, like didn't really talk that much at the beginning, and then like just like after 2 or 3 weeks, you know, you kind of recognize the faces, and you're like, oh yeah, hey, you know, I know your face, you know my face, that's cool. And then like, you know, literally like 3 years later, I'm like here and in the crew and like organizing this. So I feel like, yeah, just sometimes it's enough to know like one person or one spot to go to, and just take your time, you know, relax, like get comfortable first, and then I feel like all the natural stuff will develop. At some point you will like, the people who are interesting for you and who you are interesting for probably find you at some point, because that just kind of tends to be this way if you're like making the effort but not pushing it, you know, like you just go to the place and kind of, you know, slowly reach out to people, but like not like be like, hey, I'm the coolest dude ever, basically. So yeah, just I feel like this is kind of how it works.
Just showing up.
Showing up, making the effort, getting out of your comfort zone, but not being like weird about it.
It's so rare in my life when faced with the opportunity to go or stay home that when I do go that I regret it. That almost never happens.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you always get something out of it, I feel like. And yeah, I recently tried to pick up the habit to like just have the mindset to like, you can learn something from literally anyone. So, because sometimes I'm really not in the mood to talk to people, I'm like, oh, this is so like stressful maybe, but then I'm like, no, like this person knows so much, has like had a whole life, and I literally don't know nothing about it. So there must be at least one thing, maybe like 1,000 things that I can learn from this person. And just like keeping that in mind and like trying to act on that sometimes really helped me to get more comfortable in like group situations.
I think that's a great note. I think it was Kermit the Frog said 90% of success is showing up.
It's true, yeah. And also like what helps me, because I feel like I'm really awkward a lot, and like especially if I don't know the person, just, you know, talking about that, just like, sorry, I really like, I'm a bit awkward right now, but you know, maybe you too, and then you can like relate on that level. And most of the time the other person's like, yeah,
Me too.
I mean, holy fuck, did you look around? I'm like, yeah, right? So like just...
Isn't that amazing? The idea that we all think, you know, we're the ones that are flawed and everyone else around us is perfect.
Yeah.
And then once you voice something that you're feeling, oftentimes you get at least a connection and understanding.
But it's hard, like, especially when you admire the people and you're like, oh my God, this person's like so cool and I want like this life to be my life. You just don't see them as that human. But sometimes just, you know, talking about the awkwardness, talking about the mutual things that we all kind of go through, that's probably like a really honest way to do it. And yeah, honesty is really awesome as well, I think. Just talk about the things that you're like doing and really feeling right now, I guess.
Right, the vulnerability is the pathway to connection.
True that.
I think all of the speakers breathed a sigh of relief when Loesch went up there first. And the first thing she said was, "Hey, I'm really nervous about this," and everyone's like, "Oh God,
my
me
God,
too."
Yeah, thanks.
It's comforting. I think that is where actual human connection comes. You know, we build up all these walls about who we are supposed to be and what our social media profile looks like.
Yeah, no, just getting to know the people and like really, seeing the humanness, seeing all the flaws, but all like the cool stuff as well that's like underneath the surface is so fascinating, I think.
I love that. Good advice. Show up, be vulnerable, be honest, be who you are. Thank you, EILEEN. Sava, can we talk a little bit more about the studio system and some of the things that you've gleaned on how to break in? Quick poll, we don't have a ton of time. Oh, we actually have almost no time, so never mind. Okay, very, very quickly, Sava, what advice do you give to young artists who are trying to break in?
What would I say?
Yeah. That's a very big question for 5
Yeah,
minutes.
be humble, work your ass off.
Done.
Do personal work. To me personally, that's the first thing I see, is because it's the only kind of true unfiltered way to present yourself and what you're about. So, yep, quick answer.
Yeah, cool. I'd love to just really quickly go down the line. Nate, do you have any strong pieces of advice? You know, very short, quippy things that people can write down and remember.
If you're looking for work, still be available. Like what Ben was saying, like we're always looking for people, and at the last minute, I'm always like, we need an artist to show this thing. Who do we have? And it's usually the people that are always around that we call on in those moments. We're not looking for a new artist at that point. We need someone that we can work with and trust. And so what we normally do is we pick on, that's why like a bunch of our artworks are done by the same people, because those people keep going, hey, you guys, what are you guys doing? And we just go, yep, they're the people we think of in the moment. So being around, and we've had a few artists recently go, I'd be interested to work with you guys. And then it's like, yeah, not now. And then the same thing happens 6 months later. We're like, hey, we do need someone to do something like that. Let's hit this person up and give them a brief. So
Massively recurring theme, show up. REIKO, any quick tips?
Yeah, I think the most important, or the best thing that happened to me is I asked people. I asked artists who were in the industry the genuine question, hey man, I'm stuck, what can I do here? Just be honest, and don't make it a one-liner, just be honest, go out there, vulnerability, and show, here I'm stuck, this is what I see, I don't know what to do you have a tip? And then work on that, work with the feedback. Most artists will give you feedback. They will. So there are a few who are busy, there are a few who are swarmed with messages, but just go out, be brave, and try to communicate with people. I think that's...
Be brave, be who you are, where you are.
Yes, and yeah, be humble about it. So you're not entitled to an answer. You're absolutely not. But most people will answer anyways, because they've been there, because they...
That is so important, I think. You know, you hit on something that I think is very important to think. You are not entitled to an answer. You're not entitled to anything. And I think growing up in the cell phone generation, we think that we are. And it's so important to realize that have gratitude for what you have already. I think that couldn't be a bigger, more important note. Really quickly, Bjorn, you have some quick tips on this before we wrap this up?
Yeah, a few. I think one of them is to come to a workshop like this and meet people and connect and be a person to a person and join in with their journey, and they naturally will join into your journey as an artist, and you will grow stronger together, because it doesn't take, like, tomorrow I won't be significantly better. I will be better next year, and in 10 years I will be even better than that. And if you share that ride with other artists that are equally driven, the load on your back won't be so heavy, because you can be open and you can discuss it and you can share and you can help and you can support each other in this journey. And it's so important not to be, I think, alone in it. And it can be really heavy if you're just yourself in the cave and grinding and you can't see the end of the road.
Awesome. But Ben?
Probably a lot of similar things, but do amazing work, do persistent work daily, so you're not just like, it's like working out, right? It's like if you go to the gym once a month, you're probably not going to be in shape. So persistent daily effort, and make sure to post your work too if you're starting and looking for work. Like make sure the world knows you exist and you're persistently making new stuff, and people can say, wow, this person, look how much this person improved over even just a month. It just helps. Our work spreads around so fast now. Do good work, post it.
There you go. And EILEEN, one last thought?
All right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people like giving, and even though you're not entitled to an answer, like you said, most of people probably do, but I feel like a lot of people don't really like getting favors. At least I don't really like that. And I feel like that can become like somewhere you could trip possibly, because you don't ask for the help. Like you said, you don't reach out, even though you kind of feel you should, and maybe just like, you know, jump over it, don't be rude, but like, you know, just go out there and ask for help.
Awesome. Well, that has taken us very close. The one piece of advice I would give on connecting with people, something that has helped me immensely in just about every area of my life, is the importance of remembering people's names. And if you know, and and I know it seems like a joke because I'm openly working on it constantly. And I think, you know, for someone to stand up here and hold a microphone and say that, you'd think, oh man, they must be a fucking expert at remembering people's names. But it's really that I'm trying. And I think. Thanks, Frank. And I've found it works wonders, because when you know someone's name, you let them know that you care about them. And you let them know that they are important to you. And everyone wants to be important to them and those around them. And so, though you're going to forget people's names all the time. And if you can be open and vulnerable and be like, shit, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but I really care enough to remember it, that's way better than being like, hey, dude, see you, man. And so if you can find the access point to someone, you know their name because their name is unique to them. So we have had a really awesome panel. Thank you guys for. They should just repeat the name. Oh, that's a great tip. So when someone says their name to you, when you introduce yourself to someone, you know, look them in the eye, ask them their name, and don't just wait for your turn to speak, but really listen. You know, back to Nate's point right at the beginning, listen to them when they say their name and repeat it back to them. That way you can make sure that you got it, gives you a chance to commit it to memory, because repetition is the workhorse of discipline. When you say things out loud, it becomes into your behavior. That's a great note, Speedy. So an amazing panel. We had some really cool themes here. We had listen, we had be vulnerable, we had have the courage to take risks and put yourself out there even when it doesn't feel comfortable. This is your job, this is your career, and you are in one of the hardest, most competitive, most awesome occupations and industries in the world. So take the time to really put yourself out there, because this life is short and the career is short. Ben gave some really awesome notes. Everyone gave some awesome notes. Would you please give a quick round of applause for Nate and Sava and REIKO and EILEEN and Ben and BJORN and Spiridon and Playgrounds. This is crazy. This is the end of both playgrounds. Many of us went from the Netherlands to here. What an unbelievable undertaking. Thank you so much to Leon and Jacqueline and Paulien and the whole crew from Playgrounds. This has been an unbelievable event that I know we are all very grateful to be here. One last thing, one thing that we've done at all of these that has been really cool to bring it together and to finalize this thing. Could we do one collective clap? Okay, so at the end of this, we'll take one clap. We'll go on our merry way. You can go to the drink and draw boat for a party tonight. And how can they find out where the address is?
Märkisches Ufer 1Z. And it's like, just Google drink and draw, yeah.
There you have it. So Google, when in doubt. Okay, so on the count of three, one clap, we're all together, and then we're out of here, okay? 1, 2, 3. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.